Chapter 17. "I've been trying to tell her that it wasn't real," Jeremy said to Captain Rudley. "It was just a sort of film thingy, wasn't it? Special effects and all. Tomato ketchup and stuff." Waldo Rudley had arrived to find a shaking Sarah and a flustered Jeremy desperately doing his best to comfort her in her distress. "It was real, I tell you, and I killed him. I deliberately lifted the gun and—" The sound of the man's screams was still with her, the sight of his terminal panic so cruelly cut short. Her glee as she pulled the trigger. She shuddered violently. "It was real, all right," she said. "I'm afraid it was," said the captain. "Oh, you didn't kill him, but he was killed when the recording was made." "That's sick. It's really sick." "I'm sorry. I should have warned you. You don't have public executions on Earth?" "Where I come from, we don't have the death penalty at all," she said. She was hugging her arms close to herself, trying to control the shaking of her body. Or was it from a longing to be held, to be comforted like a child waking from a nightmare? There was a knock on the door, and a servant, carrying clean bed linen over her arm, came in and, with a deferential murmur, disappeared into Sarah's bedroom. "Was he a murderer?" said Sarah. "What had he done?" "He would have been plotting against the government, or the corporation. If he had been an active terrorist, he wouldn't even have been given that chance." "What chance did he have?" said Sarah bitterly. "Oh, they have been known to get away," he replied. "But those aren't the hunts which are put onto the public networks. There must be a kill." "And people switch on for that," said Jeremy, appalled. "More than any other channel," said Rudley. "Then they should jolly well be ashamed of themselves. Don't you think so, Captain Rudley?" said Jeremy. Sarah said nothing. How could she judge them without being a plain hypocrite? Even with her guts still twisting with the horror of her experience, she could feel the guilty buzz of satisfaction lingering yet. "Don't you think it's rotten too?" persisted Jeremy, when Waldo didn't answer. But he still had no direct reply. Instead, Waldo glanced at the bedroom door, held a finger to his lips, and gave a little shake of his head. "I hope you still feel like going to the party," he said. "I think it's just what we need," Sarah said. Though the Brigadier had been pleased to fill the empty spaces with something more substantial than the doctor's food pills, he hadn't really appreciated the cornucopia of choice they had been offered at lunchtime. Always suspicious of the way those unlucky enough not to be British mucked about with their food, he had avoided most of the exotic dishes and sought out the Paraconian equivalent of a ham sandwich, or steak and chips, simple meat and vegetables backed up with some hefty hunks of bread. So he was looking forward to the President's dinner with a certain gloom. Bound to be a lot of foreign foldy-riddle, he thought, hidden under a lot of sticky sauces, probably. He remembered the unfortunate incident of the sheep's eyes at the last Middle East peace conference he had attended, just before he joined UNIT. He thought of the bloodshot eyes of the crab-clawed Camelius. He shuddered. In the event, however, he found himself sitting down to a table which, in all respects, could have been a table at his club. Instead of the eating tongs or hinged chopsticks the doctor had proposed as likely, they were using perfectly normal cutlery, knives, forks and spoons of gleaming silver, and drinking from crystal-cut glass. And the food was very much what he would have chosen himself. Smoked salmon, surely not, which melted in the mouth, followed by roast beef. Cooked on the spit, it would seem. A sublime apple tart, and a cheese more Stiltonesque than Leicestershire had ever seen. Having been brought up to believe that it was not the done thing to comment on the food one was given, he was surprised to find that the doctor had no such qualms. "I must congratulate you, President," he said, on the pains you have taken to make us feel at home. We have been told that your emissaries have been visiting us on Earth for over 30 years. Their meticulous work is evident in every mouthful we've eaten. To have produced such a superb meal, which is not only Earth-style, but also English, is subtle. Subtle? What's the man talking about? Thought the Brigadier. But the President, who had nibbled a token amount of each dish and occasionally sipped a glass of water, understood at once. He laughed a creaky laugh. "We make no secrets of our methods," he said. "To honour a guest in this way is not incompatible with our commercial intentions. But why should we be ashamed of that? To conclude a successful negotiation with Earth would be to our advantage, certainly, but Earth herself would be immeasurably the gainer." The doctor glanced at the Brigadier, who was pouring himself a glass of port. He looked up. The dark-haired woman whom the President had called Onya, who had been playing the part of butler, was ushering the remaining servants from the room. Apart from Onya herself and the green uniformed guards at the door, they were alone. Ah, the Brigadier thought, time to get down to business. He cleared his throat to give himself time to surface from the mellow befuddlement induced by the succession of excellent wines he had drunk. "Yes, well," he said, "forgive me, sir, but would you mind explaining exactly how we should all benefit from your, philanthropy?" Blast, he thought. Sounded sarcastic, gone too far. The President frowned. "I understood that the discussions at the United Nations were progressing well," he said. Yes, they are. It's just that, The doctor came smoothly to his rescue. "We have been promised a paradise, President," he said. "But I must admit, we are a little short on detail. Background information, you might call it." The President relaxed. He leant back in his wheelchair and smiled. "I'm proud to say that it was my grandfather who brought back the rapine seed in the first place," he said. "He was a trader, space-hopping for new markets and new products. He spotted the potential of rapine straight away." Rapine? What the devil was rapine? Had he missed something the old goat had said? "And it's on, rapine that the paradise is built?" asked the doctor. Good. The doctor was equally foxed. The President said, "Exactly." The doctor said, "I see." The Brigadier thought, "Blowed if I do." He passed the port to the doctor. The doctor, whose glass was full, passed it straight on to the President. The President passed it back to the Brigadier, and the Brigadier topped up his glass. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I don't understand." "Let me show you something," said the President. With a slight movement of his hand, he adjusted a control on the arm of his wheelchair. It turned, and he rolled across the broad expanse of polished wood towards the window. The Brigadier hastily put down his glass and followed, accompanied by the doctor. "Tell me, Brigadier," said the President, as he activated another control which drew back the heavy green curtains. "Tell me, did you enjoy your dinner?" Good grief. So etiquette was to be utterly thrown overboard, was it? What else could he say but, "Yes, it was delicious"? But then it was delicious, wasn't it? "It was delicious," he said. "Was the meat to your liking, and the vegetables, and the wines?" "Excellent. Couldn't be bettered. Only one word. Delicious. Yes, delicious." The doctor, seemingly more amused than anything at the Brigadier's discomfiture, was looking out of the window at the floodlit grounds of the palace and the myriad lights of the city beyond. Dominated by two immense lollipop-shaped towers at the hub, the lower buildings spread radially to the skyline, where an irregular rim of high-rise blocks completed the wheel. are the factories the large buildings in the distance?" he asked. Factories? Who said anything about factories? The brigadier looked back at the president in some bewilderment. The president smiled. "That's right, Doctor," he replied. "The largest you can see, the one to the right. That's where the meat you were eating tonight was manufactured." "Manufactured?" said the brigadier. "Yes, manufactured. From rapine. And the building with the green sign to the right of it is where they made the vegetables and the fruit for your tart. Also from the rapine plant. The wine comes from another town, a warmer country, where they once grew the fruit from which we used to ferment our drinks. We like to keep these old associations alive, but it was made from rapine as well." He laughed. "I have to admit one failure. The walnuts are imported from Earth. Apart from that, everything you have had came from rapine." "That's incredible," said the brigadier. "The generosity of the plant is incredible," replied the president, wheeling himself back to the table. The brigadier sipped his port with a new awareness. But it still tasted like the old crusted vintage his grandfather had been so proud of. Made from some sort of field crop. Never. But the president had not finished. He went on to state categorically that there was nothing that a normal civilized society might use that could not be manufactured or synthesized from rapine. "Nothing, President?" "Nothing, Doctor." The sugars and proteins in the fruit, the foliage from the roots, together with the oil from the seed, which could also be used for fuel, fed them, and the various parts of the plant were the raw material for a range of products which covered every need, from a woman's clothes to a jet engine. "You mean you've even replaced metal?" said the brigadier, even more incredulously. "I'd like to see that." "You have," answered the president, evidently enjoying himself. "Eh?" "The knives and forks, so carefully made to match your earth pattern." The doctor laughed. "Don't let it worry you, Lethbridge Stewart," he said. "I would hazard on a guess that everything in this room is ultimately derived from rapine. The chairs we're sitting on, the rugs, the curtains, the light fitments, everything. Am I right, President?" "Very nearly. And all this from a plant that will grow in any climate, on any type of fertile soil, and produce harvest after abundant harvest." The doctor tilted his head and rubbed the back of his forefinger along the side of his chin. "Forgive me," he said, "but you sound like a salesman trying to persuade a doubtful customer." The president laughed his wheezy laugh once more. "Very perspicacious of you, Doctor. That's exactly what I was for 30 years and more. An interplanetary salesman." He leaned forward in his wheelchair. "But I wasn't selling rapine. I was selling dreams. I was selling riches." He was no longer laughing. His expression was utterly serious, and his voice urgent and intense. "I was selling paradise," he said. By the time they were settling into Waldo's fly car, Sarah was feeling quite a lot better. He had been so concerned for her, seeming to understand exactly how she felt even before she told him, that somehow she felt the burden of guilt was being shared. He'd been through it himself. "That's the very reason I won't switch through to those channels," he had said, as the moving walkway carried them to the flycar park. "You see, although they haven't found out yet how to record feelings, the recorded sensory data transferred to your brain includes all the physical components of the original emotions. You wouldn't experience the originator's fear, for instance, but you would get the fluttering in your stomach, and that would stimulate your own fear." "Yes, I see," said Sarah. "It's very difficult for the two things to be separated," he went on, as they walked through the ranks of small flycars. We all have the potentiality for enjoying cruelty, I'm afraid, but in the ordinary way we inhibit it. That's why those channels are so popular. They let people do things they normally would be ashamed to do. A license to kill, murmured Sarah. Yes, said Waldo. And worse. He stopped by a small green car with the presidential crest on the door and turned to her. He put his hands on her shoulders and turned her to him. So, you see, he said, you mustn't blame yourself for the way you felt. You couldn't help it. Sarah gave a shaky smile and nodded. He smiled back and turned away to open the flycar door. But did he stay looking into her eyes a fraction longer than was necessary?